They laughed when her name didn't appear. They smirked when she didn't argue. They mocked her silence until a single monitor flashed, and the room forgot how to breathe. This is a story about invisible sacrifice, about dignity mistaken for weakness, and about the quiet moment when truth stands up and everyone else must sit down. Before we begin, where are you watching from today? Drop it in the comments. I read everyone. And if stories of unseen heroes, quiet courage, and moral justice matter to you, please subscribe. Now let's begin. She's not on the list. Security laughed. Then the monitor flashed. Tier 1 pilot. The laugh came first, sharp, dismissive. Public. She's not on the list. It echoed across the checkpoint hall, bouncing off polished floors and steel railings, carrying with it the weight of certainty, the kind that assumes it cannot be wrong. The security officer didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The humiliation was casual, practiced, almost bored. The woman stood on the opposite side of the barrier, hands relaxed at her sides, shoulders squared but unadorned. No uniform, no medals. Just a dark jacket worn thin at the cuffs, boots scuffed by miles no one here could see. Her face bore the calm of someone who had faced worse than ridicule. Her eyes, steady and pale, did not flicker. Behind her the line stalled. A dozen strangers shifted, sighed, checked phones. Somewhere above them, a monitor blinked quietly, cycling through clearance codes and names. The officer tapped the screen again, more force this time, as if technology itself were being stubborn. Mom, I don't know why you're standing here. This access lane is restricted. You're not authorized. She said nothing. Silence unsettled him. He leaned back in his chair, scanning her as if something might reveal itself under scrutiny. It didn't. No insignia, no visible rank, no urgency, just composure. You can step aside, he added, the smile returning thin and victorious. You're holding everyone up. The room waited for her to shrink. She didn't. Her name was Mara Vance. To the world, she was unremarkable, mid-30s, average height. Hair pulled back without vanity. She looked like someone who preferred to pass through spaces unnoticed. And for years, that had been intentional. Survival had taught her that visibility was dangerous. What no one here could see was the way her spine remembered G-forces. The way her left knee ached when storms approached. The way silence for her was not weakness but discipline. She had learned it in cockpits where words were liabilities. In skies where hesitation killed. In moments when lives depended on stillness, not noise. The security officer gestured again, impatience sharpening. Ma'am. Step aside. Mara's gaze drifted briefly to the monitor overhead. It hummed softly, its glow reflected faintly in her eyes. Then she looked back at him. I'll wait, she said quietly. The words were not defiant. They were factual. Like a pilot acknowledging turbulence. A ripple of irritation passed through the checkpoint. Someone scoffed. Someone else muttered that rules were rules. The officer stood now, authority straightening his back. Last chance, he said. You are not on the list. Mara nodded once. She waited. Years earlier, the smell of jet fuel had clung to her skin, even after she showered. It lived in her clothes, her dreams, her memories. The first time she climbed into a tier 1 aircraft, her hands had trembled, not from fear, but reverence. She had been one of the first women selected for the program, though that fact never made it into press releases. The aircraft wasn't forgiving. It demanded precision, restraint, instinct sharpened to a blade. Her instructor had told her once, voice flat through the comms, if you need recognition, you're in the wrong sky. She took that to heart. Mara flew missions that never existed on paper, insertions that left no debris, extractions that saved names the public would never learn. She learned to compartmentalize loss, the co-pilot who didn't eject in time, the ground team that went dark without warning. The hardest mission wasn't the most dangerous. It was the last one. The day command grounded her without ceremony. No debrief. No handshake. Just a quiet acknowledgement that her body had absorbed enough punishment. That her reflexes, while still sharp, came with pain they didn't want to account for. She left the base, carrying a duffel bag and a silence heavier than metals. And she never spoke of it again. Back at the checkpoint, the officer's radio crackled. He turned slightly away, murmuring into it, then glanced back at Mara with renewed confidence. Supervisor's on the way, he said. This won't take long. Mara shifted her weight, the faint H in her knee blooming and fading. She noticed the hum of fluorescent lights. The faint scent of antiseptic. The rhythm of the monitor cycling names, white text on blue background. A man in line behind her whispered to his companion, "Why doesn't she just leave?" Because leaving had never saved anyone, Mara thought. The supervisor arrived briskly, authority wrapped in pressed fabric and clipped steps. He listened to the officer's explanation, eyes flicking to Mara with practiced neutrality. "Mom," he said, "this area is restricted to authorized personnel only. If your name isn't cleared." "It will be," Mara replied. The supervisor paused. Something in her tone, calm, certain, didn't fit the narrative he'd already built. He turned toward the monitor, ready to end the conversation. That was when the screen froze. For half a second nothing happened. Then the display refreshed. Not a name. A designation. The room stilled. The supervisor frowned. "That's not possible," he said, stepping closer. The monitor changed again. Mara closed her eyes. She hadn't heard that call sign spoken aloud in years. The officer swallowed. His earlier smile vanished, replaced by something like confusion, then fear. "Supervisor," he whispered, "that clearance level?" The monitor flashed once more. Silence pressed down on the room, heavy and absolute. Someone dropped their phone. The supervisor straightened slowly, color draining from his face. He looked at Mara again, not as an inconvenience, but as a presence. "Ms. Vance," he said carefully, reading the name now displayed beneath the designation. "We weren't informed." Mara opened her eyes. "Information doesn't always travel loudly," she said. The officer stepped back, as if distance might protect him from the weight of his own words moments earlier. His laugh replayed in his mind, sour and reckless. The supervisor cleared his throat. "Of course," he said, gesturing quickly. "Please, this way." No one moved. The line behind her watched, transfixed. Bystanders who had been silent now stood straighter, shame and awe mingling in their expressions. Mara walked forward, unhurried. Each step echoed not with sound but meaning. As she passed the officer, he found his voice. I didn't know," he said. She stopped, turned, looked at him, not with anger, but clarity. "You didn't need to," she replied. "You just needed to listen." It was the first quote people would remember. Beyond the checkpoint, doors opened that had never opened for her before. Not because she demanded them, but because truth had arrived without announcement. An older man in uniform waited near the corridor, posture rigid, eyes wet. He saluted her not sharply but deeply. With gratitude. "Mom," he said, voice unsteady. "Welcome back." Mara returned the salute. Not for him. For the ones who never walked through doors again. The monitor behind them continued to glow, its light bathing the hall in quiet reverence. Someone in the crowd murmured, "That's her." Another whispered, "She flew nightfall missions." The story spread, not as gossip, but as realization. Later, as Mara disappeared down the corridor, the checkpoint felt different. Smaller. Humbled. The officer sat down heavily, staring at the floor. The supervisor placed a hand on his shoulder, not to comfort, but to remind. Outside, the sky stretched wide and indifferent, clouds drifting like unspoken memories. Mara paused once, hand brushing the wall. She felt the vibration of the building, the pulse of systems humming beyond sight. It reminded her of aircraft engines, alive, patient, powerful. She had never needed applause, but respect that mattered. Before she vanished from view, the older officer spoke again, softly this time. "Some heroes don't announce themselves," he said. Mara smiled faintly. "And some sacrifices," she replied, "weren't meant to be seen, only honored." That was the second quote. The third came later, written on a plaque that would quietly replace an old sign near the checkpoint. Silence does not mean absence. Sometimes it means strength. In the end, there was no press conference, no viral apology video, just a system recalibrated, a room that would never again laugh so easily, and a woman who walked back into the sky carrying the same quiet dignity she always had. Because the strongest people rarely ask to be recognized. They wait. If this story moved you, share where you're watching from today. Tell us what quiet strength means to you. And subscribe for more stories that honor the heroes who don't speak, but still change everything.